In the vast and often chaotic tapestry of human nature, there exists a rare and profound archetype of individuals who navigate the world, not just with their senses, but with a deeply intuitive and empathetic soul. These are the quiet guardians of our society, the listeners, the healers, and the deeply loyal companions who often see right through the surface and into the very core of who we are. They are driven by an innate desire to understand the hidden emotional currents of the world, constantly striving for meaningful connections and deeply held ideals. Yet beneath their calm exterior and thoughtful demeanor lies an intricate landscape of internal struggles that often remain completely hidden from the rest of the world. Today we embark on a deeply psychological and emotional journey to uncover the hidden vulnerabilities of this profoundly empathetic personality. This is not a journey to point out flaws, but rather a compassionate exploration, to understand the quiet burdens they carry, to navigate the complexities of their minds, and to ultimately find healing and growth in the beautiful paradox of their existence. The first and perhaps most heavy burden carried by these deeply empathetic souls is the silent suffering of emotional burnout, born from an endless well of giving. Imagine a person who is fundamentally wired to be an emotional sponge, soaking up the joys, but more often the sorrows, anxieties, and unspoken pains of everyone around them. They operate on an internal compass that prioritizes the needs, the harmony, and the healing of others long before their own. They are the friends who will stay up until dawn to guide you through a crisis, the colleagues who absorb the stress of a fractured team, and the partners who constantly adjust their own emotional sails to ensure a smooth journey for those they love. But this beautiful, breathtaking capacity for empathy is a double-edged sword. Because they struggle so deeply with the word no, they often find themselves carrying a mountain of emotional baggage that was never theirs to carry in the first place. This invisible labor compounds day after day, year after year, draining their internal reservoirs until there is simply nothing left to give. When this emotional bankruptcy hits, the results can be entirely baffling to the outside observer. The person who has always been the reliable anchor may suddenly retreat into total isolation without a word of explanation. They might experience sudden tears or emotional breakdowns that seem come completely out of nowhere, or they may quietly harbor a deep, aching resentment toward the very people they have dedicated their lives to helping. The most heartbreaking part of this dynamic is the hidden truth that they actively hide their own exhaustion. They are terrified of disappointing those who rely on them, so they put on a brave, gentle smile and continue to show up even while they are quietly crumbling on the inside. Healing from this requires a profound shift in perspective. It requires learning the sacred art of setting boundaries. They must understand that their emotional resources are precious and finite, and that protecting their energy is not an act of selfishness, but an absolute necessity for their own survival and continued ability to love. Beyond the realm of emotional exhaustion lies another silent struggle: the crushing weight of perfectionism and the paralyzing fear of failure. These intuitive minds are constantly painting incredibly vivid, idealized pictures of how the world should be. Whether it is a romantic relationship, a creative project, a career path, or their own moral conduct, they have a crystal-clear vision of absolute perfection, but reality is inherently messy, flawed, and unpredictable. When the messy reality of the world inevitably falls short of their beautiful internal vision, the disappointment can feel like a physical blow. This is compounded by their acute awareness of how their actions affect others. They are constantly terrified of letting people down, of making a misstep that might cause pain, or of being judged as inadequate. This relentless pursuit of the ideal creates an internal pressure cooker that rarely ever releases its steam. This perfectionism does not always look like obsessive organization or immaculate workspaces. More often it manifests in subtle, insidious ways. It looks like debilitating procrastination, where they delay starting a project simply because they are terrified they cannot execute it perfectly. It looks like spending weeks agonizing over an email or a creative endeavor, trapped in a cycle of endless refinement. It is a quiet paralysis born from a profound fear of not being good enough. Yet they rarely confess this struggle to the world, viewing their inability to reach perfection as a deep personal failing rather than a universal human experience. To navigate this labyrinth, they must actively embrace the philosophy of progress over perfection. They must learn to look at a flawed, beautiful attempt not as evidence of failure, but as a necessary stepping stone of growth. Learning to love the messy, imperfect journey of life is the key to unlocking their true creative and emotional potential. As we delve deeper, we uncover a third hidden vulnerability: the profound struggle with confrontation and the instinctive avoidance of conflict. These are individuals who crave peace, mutual respect, and emotional safety with every fiber of their being. When tension arises in a room, they can feel it as palpably as a drop in temperature. Their immediate biological instinct is to smooth the waters, to make the uncomfortable feelings go away, and to restore harmony at almost any cost. But the cost is often their own authenticity. To avoid rocking the boat, they will frequently swallow their own needs, silence their own opinions, and betray their own boundaries. They convince themselves that remaining quiet is the noble thing to do, the mature way to handle a relationship. But avoiding a storm does not make the clouds disappear. It only allows the pressure to build. The tragedy of conflict avoidance is that it slowly poisons the very relationships they are trying to protect. By bottling up their true feelings, they allow minor irritations to fester into deep-seated resentments. A partner might have no idea that anything is wrong until years of unspoken compromises suddenly erupt in a rare out-of-character emotional explosion, or worse, a quiet withdrawal from the relationship altogether. True peace cannot be built on a foundation of silence. They must learn the incredibly difficult lesson that healthy, respectful confrontation is not a destructive force, but a deeply productive one. Speaking one's truth, setting a boundary early, and addressing small frictions with a calm and open heart is the ultimate act of vulnerability. It is a sign of immense relational strength that builds deeper trust far beyond the fragile illusion of constant harmony. We then arrive at the relentless engine of the empathetic mind, the exhausting loop of overthinking and analysis paralysis. Their minds are magnificent, intricate machines, constantly observing patterns, predicting future outcomes, and reflecting on every detail of past interactions. While this grants them their famous insight and wisdom, it also traps them in a mental prison. They can spend hours agonizing over a completely innocent conversation, replaying every single word, every micro-expression, torturing themselves with the thought that they might have said the wrong thing. When faced with a decision, especially one that affects others, they will attempt to calculate every single possible timeline, terrified of making a choice that leads to discomfort. This mental gymnastics is profoundly draining, leaving them feeling completely depleted without ever having moved an inch. It is vital to understand that for these individuals, overthinking is not simply a bad habit, it is a desperate coping mechanism. By overanalyzing the past and hyper-predicting the future, they are attempting to create an illusion of control in a deeply unpredictable world. They believe that if they just think hard enough, they can prevent pain. But the mind cannot solve the problems of the heart simply by thinking harder. The antidote to this paralysis is the gentle practice of mindfulness, of bringing one's spirit firmly back to the present moment. They must learn to set gentle but firm limits on their own internal debates and accept the terrifying, beautiful truth that life is inherently uncertain. Letting go of the need to control the outcome and trusting in their ability to handle whatever comes their way is the ultimate path to mental freedom. This brings us to a phenomenon that is both legendary and deeply misunderstood: the absolute and final severing of emotional ties. When a deeply empathetic person has been hurt, betrayed, or taken advantage of repeatedly, they do not simply walk away immediately. They offer chances, grace, and forgiveness far past the point of reason. They will exhaust every single ounce of their emotional energy trying to fix the unfixable. But when they finally reach the absolute end of their endurance, a profound internal shift occurs. To protect their shattered emotional core, they build an impenetrable wall. They close the door on the relationship completely, quietly, and without any dramatic warning. To the outside world, this seems cold and sudden, but in reality it is the culmination of 1,000 silent emotional deaths. It is a survival mechanism, pure and simple. While this emotional barricade protects them from toxic destruction, it is a profoundly heavy weapon to wield. It often leaves them grappling with an agonizing sense of guilt, mourning the ghost of a relationship they tried so hard to save. It prevents any final closure, and sometimes isolates them from individuals who, given clear boundaries earlier, might have actually changed. The key to mitigating this painful ending is entirely preventative. It is the brave act of setting non-negotiable boundaries long before the resentment begins to curdle. It is having the courage to say, "I am hurting," while the relationship is still alive, rather than waiting until the spirit is completely broken. Learning this emotional alchemy allows them to protect their peace without having to endure the grief of constantly severing ties. Finally, we must explore their ultimate sanctuary, which can easily become their quietest prison: the use of self-isolation as a primary coping mechanism. Because the external world is so loud, so demanding, and so emotionally overwhelming, these gentle souls require significant periods of profound solitude to recharge their internal batteries. In the quiet, they process their deep emotions, they realign with their core values, and they heal. However, when the world feels too judgmental, when they feel deeply misunderstood, or when they are avoiding a difficult emotional reality, this healthy need for solitude can quietly morph into a dangerous isolation. They retreat into their own minds, locking the world out, completely believing that it is safer to be alone than to be misunderstood. But prolonged isolation starves the human spirit of the very thing these individuals crave most deeply: genuine, authentic connection. Days of peaceful quiet turn into weeks of subtle loneliness. They become trapped in a cycle of avoidance where reaching back out to friends and loved ones feels like an impossibly heavy task. The healing journey requires a delicate, intentional balance. They must learn to honor their absolute need for quiet retreat while simultaneously tending to the garden of their relationships. It involves pushing themselves to send a simple text message or share a cup of coffee with a trusted confidant, even when their instinct is to hide. They must remind themselves daily that opening up and being vulnerable is not a fatal weakness, but rather the bravest thing a human being can do. To the quiet guardians, to the deep thinkers and the endless empathizers walking among us, know this: your vulnerabilities are not defects. They are the exact same forces that give you your incredible insight, your boundless compassion, and your unique ability to heal the people around you. Your strengths and your struggles are simply two sides of the same beautiful, intricate coin. By recognizing these hidden challenges, you do not diminish your light, you learn how to protect it. May you find the courage to set gentle boundaries, the grace to accept your own imperfections, and the wisdom to balance your beautiful internal world with the loving connections of the world outside. Embrace your whole authentic self, because the world deeply needs the extraordinary light that only you can bring. May you walk forward with profound peace, a rested heart, and renewed strength.